Hello and welcome to the PhoneBurner training. I'm your host, Jeff Osnes. If you want to reach out to me, send me an email, jeff@phoneburner.com. I'll be happy to help out any way I can. And today we're going to be talking about customizing your dispositions, or customizing the buttons that you are going to use when making calls with PhoneBurner. And we're going to be focusing specifically on team accounts in this training. So how do you customize your buttons or your dispositions in PhoneBurner? As an admin, you can actually make these customizations in the admin account for the entire team, so you don't have to go in account by account and make those customizations individually. So let's jump into the training and let me show you how you can start customizing your buttons for you and your team. From your admin account, in the upper right hand corner, you're going to want to click on the My Account button and go to Master Config. From the Master Config screen, you're going to want to go down to the Button Group section, and you're going to want to make sure that Do Not Share is switched to Add or Override. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and select Add. Once I've enabled the sharing of button groups from the admin account to the sub-account, now I'm going to click on the Button Groups link, and that will take me to the Dispositions page. On the Dispositions screen, you're going to see two sections, the dialing set and the live answer set. Before we talk about customizing the buttons, let's talk about these two different types of sets. The dialing set is the group of buttons that you're going to see on your screen while the phone is dialing. The types of buttons that you'd want to put in a dialing set are things like voicemail buttons, no answer buttons, busy signal buttons, potential outcomes if nobody answers the phone. Now the live answer set is the group of buttons that you or your team would see on the screen if somebody does answer the phone. So after you complete a live conversation or a live answer, this is the group of buttons that would show up on the screen. So you'd want to create buttons like interested, appointment set, follow-up, things like that. Those are the types of buttons that you'd want to put in your live answer set. Each of these sections, the dialing set and the live answer set sections, they come with a default set of buttons. You'll notice that the default dialing set has 5 buttons in it. And we're going to take the default set and we're going to create a completely custom set. We're going to leave the default set as is, but we're going to make a copy of the default dialing set. And now you're going to see a new dialing set listed here, default copy. This is the one that we're going to edit for our team. So over on the right hand side, I'm going to click on the Edit This Dialing Set link or button. I'm going to go ahead and change the name of this set to Member Retention. As I go through this training, I'm going to focus on a potential member retention campaign that I might be putting together for my team. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now that I've updated the name, let's go down to the buttons and let's talk about customizing these buttons. Here we've got the 5 standard buttons: voicemail, no answer, busy signal, bad number, and fax machine. These buttons can be rearranged, so if I want to move my voicemail button down to the end, maybe I want to get rid of the fax machine button. And now let's go in and actually customize some of these buttons. I'm going to take the voicemail button first. I'm going to go ahead and click on the voicemail button. That'll bring up the button editor. And in this particular campaign, I actually have 2 voicemails that I want to leave. I want to leave an English voicemail and a Spanish voicemail, depending on the type of contact that's being called. So I'm actually going to customize this standard voicemail button to become my English voicemail button. So I'm going to change the text on the button to be English voicemail. I'm going to change the status to English voicemail. I'm actually going to assign my English voicemail to this button. The note, I'm going to change this to Left English VM. And for my one-touch email, I'm going to assign my left message email. And for the Move to Folder option, I'm going to leave the contact alone. So I have the option of moving a contact from one folder to another based off the button I click on. But in this particular case, I'm going to leave the contact where it was. I'm not going to move it at all. And I also have an option to transfer a contact from one user to another. However, in the case of leaving a voicemail, I don't really care about that, so I'm going to leave that alone. I also have the ability to add or remove tags. In the case of a voicemail, I'm going to leave that alone. Next action is an option that we can use when we have contacts with multiple phone numbers. If the contact I'm calling has another phone number, I want to try that next phone number. So I'm going to leave this set to next number. And then my last 2 options, DNC and delete contacts. Obviously, I don't want to delete them just because I left them a voicemail, and I don't want to add them to my do not call list. So I'm going to leave those set to no, and I'm going to save the button. Now that I've customized that button, I need to create a Spanish voicemail button. So I'm going to click on the Add New Button button. That'll bring up the button editor. so that I can create a new button. I'm going to go ahead and put the text as Spanish voicemail. I'm also going to set the status to Spanish voicemail. And for my voicemail option, I'm going to select my admin Spanish VM. And for my note, I'm going to put in left Spanish voicemail. For my one-touch email, I'm going to have the system send the left message in Spanish. So I have two versions of my left message email. I have a English version and a Spanish version, and I want my Spanish voicemail button to send the Spanish version of that email. So I'm going to go ahead and assign that. Move to folder, once again, I'm going to leave that alone. Transfer, I'm going to skip that. Tags, I'm going to leave those alone. Next action, I'm going to change that from ask me because I don't want the system to ask me if I should call the next contact or number. If I leave a voicemail, let's move on to the next phone number if there is one within that contact record. And then, of course, DNC and delete contact. We're going to leave those alone, and we're going to save. And now we have our two voicemail buttons created. We have our English voicemail and our Spanish voicemail. Now, before I finish up with my member retention dialing set, I want to edit my bad number button. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to make one change here. Obviously, this is not a voicemail button, so I'm not going to make any changes there. But I am going to set it up so anytime I come across a bad number, I want to move those contacts into my bad/DNC folder. I'm going to make that change, and I'm going to save. You'll also notice that the bad number button will also add that phone number to my DNC list. That way, if this contact or that phone number ever comes up again in another list, it'll automatically be skipped. So at this point, I'm done editing my member retention dialing set. Let's go back to the Dispositions page or section. We'll see our dialing sets listed here. Now, because I'm part of a team and I want my team to be able to use this dialing set, I'm going to make sure I click on the Share This button right here. By using the Share This option, that will make this member retention dialing set available to my team so they can start using it. I'm also going to make it my default. By making it my default, when I go to start a dial session, I won't have to choose it. The system will have already chosen it for me, and I can move through and begin dialing a lot faster. Now let's go down to our live answer set. Here we've got our default live answer set. There are 4 buttons in it. I'm going to leave the default dialing set alone, and I'm actually going to make a copy of this one as well. So I'm going to click on the copy this. Now you'll see the default copy in the live answer set, and we're going to start customizing this live answer set. So I'm going to click on the edit button. I'm going to change the name to member retention, and then I'm going to save it. Now I'm going to start customizing the buttons. Here you'll see the 4 buttons that come pre-configured in the default button set. They are interested, not yet interested, wrong person, and do not call. These buttons may or may not make sense for you and what you're trying to accomplish with the type of dialing you're doing. For example, in my member retention campaign, my ultimate goal is to have my team set appointments so that we can try to schedule some training to help them better understand the system. So I'm going to go ahead and customize the They Are Interested button because this isn't necessarily exactly what I want it to say. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the button. Once the button editor opens up, I can now start to customize this button. But before I start to customize the button, I want to kind of talk to you about what I'm going to be doing here with my member retention live answer set. So the goal isn't necessarily to find out who's interested or not because this is a member retention campaign. I want to set appointments with these people so that I can train them on how to use our system so we can better retain our members. And so I want to actually have specific buttons for each of my reps. So rather than having They Are Interested, I'm going to create appointment set buttons for each of my reps. Now I have 4 reps that are going to be out there making calls, and so I'm going to create 4 appointment set buttons. In this particular case, I'm going to set the text just to Eddie. So as Eddie is making calls and he sets an appointment, he just clicks on the button that corresponds with his name, and then he moves on to the next call. I'm going to change the status from interested to set appointment. I'm also going to change the note here to set appointment. For my one-touch email, I'm going to use the appointment set email. And I'm going to move the contacts. Once this button is clicked, I'm going to move those contacts to the appointment set or my appointments folder. Now the next option is the transfer to option. Since my team is trying to set appointments for me to retain our members, I want to have those contacts that have appointments set. I'm going to go ahead and select my name from the transfer to user option so that when this button is used, the contacts are moved into my account. Now the next option is the tags option. Now this particular button is specific to Eddie. And so what I want to do is I want to make sure that Eddie is tagged to this contact. So where it says add tags, I'm going to go ahead and select Eddie from the list. So when that button is clicked, the contact is moved into my account and Eddie is tagged to that contact so that I will know that that contact came from Eddie. Eddie will also be making notes on the contact record when he's talking to him, but this tag will continue to go along with him even though the contact is going into the set appointment folder. I could also set it up so that it removes any other tags as well. So if, let's say, Gary's tag was on there, I could remove Gary's, I could remove John's, and I could remove Mary's. So that way, if Gary, John, or Mary had ever tagged them previously, we remove those tags and we're just going to add Eddie's tag. For next action, we're going to move on to the next contact because once we've set an appointment with somebody, even if they have other phone numbers, we don't care to call those other phone numbers. We want to move on to the next contact. And for D&C and delete, we're going to leave those alone and we're going to save. And so now you can see the button has been saved and we've got Eddie listed here as a button and all of the settings that correspond with it. And now I'm going to take a few minutes and I'm going to create the other buttons. So I'm going to click on Add New Button. That brings up the button editor. We're going to create the Mary button with the status of set appointment. We're going to put a note of set appointment. One touch email is going to be appointment set. Move to folder is going to appointments. Transfer to Jeff. Remove tags. We're going to remove Gary, John, and Eddie, and we're going to add Mary. And for next action, we're going to go to the next contact. D&C delete, we're going to leave those alone and save. Okay, and so now we have all of our appointment setter buttons created. We can now rearrange these if we'd like. So I'm actually going to take not interested and move that down. Wrong person, we're going to move that down. And we're going to take do not call and move that down to the end. We're going to customize or edit our do not call button. And we're going to move those contacts into our bad/DNC folder and save. And there we go. Now we've created a custom live answer set for our member retention campaign. We've got buttons set up for each of our reps so that they can move the contacts into my account and add their tag to the contact record so that I can make sure that I know that they were the ones that set the appointments. Now let's go back to the main dispositions page. We'll see the member retention dialing set. We're sharing that. Our member retention live answer set, we need to make sure that we share this to our team. Now that was an example of how we created a live answer set that we could use with all of our reps. We could also create rep-specific live answer sets and dialing sets if we wanted to. But now that we've created the dialing set and we've created the live answer set, let's talk about some of the areas where we can use it. Let's talk about implementation, right? So one of the features that I use in PhoneBurner is a blind poll lead stream. And what that does is that allows me to have a pool of leads that all of my reps can draw from for making calls. So I don't have to segment my list individually. I can just have a pool and let them draw from the list. So what I need to do now for my lead stream is I need to make sure that each of my team members are going to be using the correct dialing set and live answer set. So I'm going to go over to contacts, and then on the right hand side I'm going to click on the little gear and I'm going to go to lead stream. Now there's two ways I can assign a dialing set and a live answer set to the lead stream. I can assign it to the lead stream as a whole, or I can assign them to specific reps. So let me show you how to do each one of those. I'm going to go ahead and edit the existing lead stream. And in here, you'll see the default dialing set is currently set to default. So let's change that to member retention. Same with default live answer set. It's set to default. We're going to change that to member retention. And then we're going to save changes. Now the other option, if we go back to the lead stream page, is to go into the manage recipients section. From here, we can see a list of all of our users, all of our reps that are assigned to this lead stream. And we can edit each one of those reps. And when we edit the reps, we can assign specific dialing sets and live answer sets. So if we wanted to create a specific dialing set and live answer set for each rep, we can then go in and assign that dialing and live answer set to the rep. Now in this particular case, I've already updated the lead stream to use the member retention by default, so I actually don't need to go in here and customize it per rep. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this. And let's go and take a look at how this is going to work in a sub account or in one of our reps accounts. So I'm going to go to the team tab and let's just go ahead and log into Eddie's account. So I'm going to log into Eddie. I'm going to go to his dial sessions tab. I'm going to go to PhoneBurner settings. I'm going to go to Dispositions. And from the Dispositions screen, I'll see the member retention campaign is listed here for both dialing and live answer sets. You'll notice that he cannot delete those sets. He can, however, make those the defaults on his account if he wants to. However, because the dialing set and live answer set are assigned to him or to the lead stream, it really doesn't matter in the case of dialing from a lead stream. But if he does begin a dial session outside of a lead stream, he would need to decide which dialing set and live answer set he'd want to use at the start of each session. So it would be a good idea to actually set a default, to choose which one the member wants as their default. But let me show you what kind of customizations each rep can do inside a dialing set or live answer set. So let's go ahead and edit the member retention set. In here, you're going to see the same set of buttons that we saw in the admin account. No answer, busy signal, bad number, English voicemail, and Spanish voicemail. However, remember when we created the buttons on the admin side, we actually assigned specific voicemails, the actual audio files, the voicemails, to the buttons. If Eddie wants to use different voicemails, he can do that. He can click on the button itself. So let's click on the English voicemail button. That'll open up the button editor, and you'll see he cannot change the text of the button or the status, but he can change the voicemail. So if he doesn't want to use the admin English voicemail, he can use his English voicemail and then save it. He can then do the same thing with the Spanish voicemail. He can go in there and switch it to use his voicemail and save it. Now let's go back to the Dispositions page, and let's go to the live answer set. We're going to go ahead and make the member retention the default. And let's go ahead and edit this set. You'll see all the same buttons are there. We can click on the buttons to open them up to view them. And here in the Transfer To section, you'll see that it's already set to me, and the member cannot change who the button would transfer the contact to. So we're going to go ahead and exit out of that. So now that we've customized the buttons, we've shared the buttons, we have assigned them to our team members, let's actually do a dial session so you can actually see what the buttons are going to look like in the dial session themselves. And we can actually use a couple of these buttons, and we can see the contacts get moved from one folder to another as well as one account to another. So I'm going to click on the Leads tab. This will take me to the lead stream section so I can open up the member retention campaign. And we can see that we've got contacts to be called, so I'm going to go ahead and begin the dial session. That'll bring up the dial session window like it normally would. We can choose a phone script if we want to have a phone script up on the screen. You can choose a default voicemail. However, remember, we have already assigned the voicemails to the button, so it really doesn't matter which voicemail we choose here. However, one of the options when creating a voicemail button is to leave it set to use the default voicemail. So you will want to pay attention to what you choose as a default voicemail, just in case you have a button, a voicemail button, that is pointing to the default. And you'll notice the dialing set and live answer sets are already selected and we cannot change them. Those are set from the admin level, and the rep does not have the choice to change those when starting a dial session from the lead stream. And now we're going to go ahead and continue. And this next screen is going to go ahead and give us the phone number and the PIN to call. So I'm going to go ahead and use my cell phone real quick to call that number and enter the PIN. All right, so now we're connected to the system. I'm going to go ahead and make this window just a little bit larger here. And we're ready to start making calls. So we hit start dialing, and that's going to bring up our first contact from the lead stream. In this particular case, it's calling Elliot. Now let's say it goes to voicemail. We click whichever voicemail button that makes sense. So if this person had an English voicemail, we'd click that, and we'd move on to the next call. And so now we're on to the next call. Let's assume this person answers the phone live. It's actually calling my line here. So they answer the phone live. You have your conversation with them. You end the call. And here you'll see the different buttons across the bottom. Since I'm working on behalf of Eddie in this particular case, let's say Eddie sets an appointment with Kyle to work with me. Eddie then clicks on the Eddie button. That moves Eddie on to the next call, and that should move the contact into the appointments folder and into my account. And so here you'll see all the different buttons across the bottom based off the customizations that you created. You can create as many voicemail buttons as you need. You can create as many live answer set buttons that correspond with what you need to do. If you need to transfer contacts from one account to another, you can do that. So once again, let me show you how that would work. We click on live answer, end the call. Now your reps will see, or you would see, depending on who's making the calls, you would see that live answer set. Once again, let's say Eddie sets the appointment, so he clicks on his name, and he moves on. So let's go ahead and end this dial session. And these are the contacts that we called. So we've got these two contacts that we set appointments with. If we go back to the admin account, we should see them in the admin set appointment folder so the admin can follow up with them. So we're going to return to the admin. We're going to go to contacts. We're going to go to the appointments folder, and there you have them. Kyle and Imani, the same two contacts that were called from Eddie's account. And that's an overview of how you can customize your buttons or your dispositions from the admin account for your team. Now, I know this training was a little longer than I typically like to have my trainings, but dispositions is a very important topic on the system. And granted, I wasn't able to go into extreme detail on all the potential different ways that you can go in and customize this, but I hope this was enough information to help you customize the dispositions to work for you and your team. Once again, our PhoneBurner pricing, it's $149 for a single unlimited account, $67.50 for 7.5 hours. And of course, if you're part of a team, the more seats you have, the more money you're going to save. If you've not set up your PhoneBurner account yet, you need to go to PhoneBurner.com, get your free trial account set up today. There's no credit card required. We're even happy to give you a team trial if you need that as well. And happy dialing.